This is the Marketing Agency Power Hour, and I'm your host, Cal Wilder. Each week, we'll power through discussions on business challenges, success stories, and game-changing strategies. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, provider of bookkeeping and accounting for marketing agencies. Let's get started. So I'm super excited to talk to today's guest. She's a seasoned marketing agency leader, an outcomes-driven team leader, a creative genius, and a brand builder. She's got experience with leading best-in-class agency teams, working with clients such as Cumberland Farms, Honda, and Body Armor. She is the managing partner and co-owner of Full Contact Advertising. Erin Regan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, and what a lovely intro.
Sure. So what's the single most powerful strategy for success in your agency these days?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Full Contact Advertising is an independent creative agency based in Boston, and we really believe that the single most important strategy that you can take for consumer brands, which is primarily our focus today, is what we call branded performance. And that is truly the power of brand building with the urgency of sales, the strategic rigor of CPG at the speed of retail. It's ensuring that you're driving brand over time, but sales overnight, which we know is so important to all of our customers today. So we really believe a lot of agencies separate these notions, solely focusing on the upper funnel or the lower funnel. And we really feel like the power of marketing today lies at the intersection.
So I'm kind of in a slow moving industry, the accounting and finance industry. But so I'm very curious how you go about working at the speed of, consumer sales and marketing.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it all starts with a powerful client partnership. That collaboration from day one is really integral in setting the vision for how we're going to move forward and really understanding the challenge, the business and brand opportunities that, we're trying to solve for. And then laying out the right strategic and marketing framework to be able to deliver on that challenge. And sometimes we need to go deep into target personas or segmentations and really unearth how we're going to talk to different audiences within a portfolio. For example, for a client of ours like Body Armor, making sure that for each unique product that we're marketing for, we're speaking to the right person while not cannibalizing the rest of the business. Then we go to work with creating a very powerful creative brief based on the marketing plan that we've laid out to really develop a big brand platform that's flexible enough to, be the red thread that we pull through their entire marketing ecosystem. And then obviously measuring all of that in real time and optimizing to make sure that the work is working and all circling back to those business goals that we set forth with our clients at project onset. And it's just a constant feedback loop. And we're always iterating and evolving. And that's that performance standpoint. We've set the brand vision, and now it's really about making sure that the creative growth engine is performing and delivering success for our clients.
I'm very curious how you go about structuring an engagement with a big company like a Honda or Body Armor or Cumberland Farms. Like, how do you staff it? Like, what are the objectives? How do you scope the engagement? Like, how does it work working with clients that are that big?
Sure. Yeah. I worked with Fortune 100 brands to early stage companies that really are in their infancy. So no two clients are alike. I think the important thing from an operations standpoint is really collaborating with your clients early on in the process to understand how they're set up and then to be able to develop the right organizing structure to complement them. So a lot of our clients today not only have marketing departments, but then they have in-house creative agencies. They have other agency partners that they're working with. So we are not, every piece of the pie. We're a part of that puzzle. and really ensuring that we have the right team leader to complement the CMO or whoever's running the marketing practice, to the day-to-day leads, to ensuring the creative handoffs are happening in the right structure. So I know I didn't totally answer your question, but the short answer is everything's set up differently, but we look at their structure to be able to build the right framework moving forward, typically always with strategy, account, creative, project management, and production in the mix, just to be able to develop the right modern playbook to deliver on creative side.
I'm also curious how you go about selling to companies like that, because I sell to small businesses doing less than $10 million in annual revenue most of the time. So I'm usually selling to the owner. But some of these companies, there's no owner. They're publicly traded companies, like there's a board of directors and there's a CMO. And what's that sales process like for you?
Yeah. So we talk about every company being different. A lot of the companies we work with are also owned by private equity. So there's a lot of different structures and setups. So a lot of times, not only are we collaborating with the day-to-day marketing department, but then we have to give them the tools or partner with them to then go through and have overarching conversations with members of the board, and extended parties that need to basically buy into our marketing strategies to move forward. I will say that our ambition is always to work with partners that believe that marketing is a strategic lever for business growth. So as long as they're aligned to that vision, we know that we have an important role to play, and we just need to make sure that we're bringing the data and business results to help complement our strategy. And then those selling strategies those selling meetings happen a lot more seamlessly when you have results and data to be able to back up the vision that you're setting for the organization.
Cool. Um, and do you work with smaller businesses, or are you pretty focused more on enterprise type accounts?
No, absolutely. I think, a lot of my historical background is working with a lot of those Fortune 100 companies, and kind of as I progressed in my career, I really enjoy working with early stage companies or mid stage companies looking to kind of go from a regional to a national brand and accelerate growth. I think it's really exciting to be on the ground floor when a company is just kind of creating that vision, everything from developing brand identities, logo design, the tone, the personality of who this brand is going to be. And even developing the first communications to really start to speak to that audience and set the framework for where the brand will evolve in the years to come. So definitely not tied to any size client. Again, it's about having those shared ambitions for what marketing can do for a brand, and having that collaboration. I think then great work can really happen at any size company.
So I think I'm kind of anchored in the smaller business space where you can kind of network your way and get introduced to the business owner and have a conversation and see if you can help. But how do you get engaged to more of an enterprise sized client? Like what does that engagement process look like? How do you get connected and get to the right person and close a deal with a huge company?
Yeah, I would say that, the process is not that differentiated from, working with smaller size clients, and that relationships are king. Obviously, nurturing a CMO relationship, they tend to leave and go on to their next venture. And if you're a great agency who's delivered results and there's trust there, they're obviously going to want to bring you into their next opportunity. So I do think relationships are king. In the marketing and advertising world, there are also a lot of connectors whose sole goal it is to really understand and know the agency landscape. So ensuring that we communicate updates about our organization to those connectors. So when RFPs and new opportunities cross their desk, we're top of mind and readily available. And then the other thing is just having a really clear positioning on who you are and what you stand for and the services that you give. I think too many agencies try to be everything to everyone. And in the end, they don't mean anything to anyone because they don't know really who you are and what you're good at. So know what you're good at, know when to say no, and really pursue the right opportunities. And then you develop those relationships because you deliver great work.
You mentioned RFPs,
Mm.
and I tend to never respond to RFPs, but you probably do,
Oh.
given the nature of some of your clients. So, what's your strategy with dealing with RFPs, and why do you deal with RFPs?
Yeah, I would say it's becoming less and less of an absolute in our industry. But, going back to the beginning of my career, specifically when I led business development and growth for a holding company agency, RFPs were the only true entry point into those Fortune 100, Fortune 500 opportunities. You have to pitch to be considered. Now, I said that that was very common, 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. The industry is really shifting where it's not a must. A lot of relationships are happening more generally, through connections, but it's still just ingrained as a part of the creative agency landscape that they want a taste of what you could possibly bring to them in order to make a decision to move forward. So, it's not everyone's favorite part, although pitching can be quite fun. It's like playing a competitive team sport as an adult, which is always really interesting and competing against other shops. But yeah, it's just it's a necessary part of the business, and a lot of times it helps. It helps them get to a decision more quickly because it can be as simple as asking for a few key case studies to actually developing the marketing plan that you would recommend.
Cool. So, we've been talking a lot about what you do for clients, and I'm curious internally at your own firm, how what does success look like? What are your ambitions internally, as far as growth versus profitability versus, lifestyle, work-life balance? How do you kind of assess the success of your own agency?
Yeah, so I have two wonderful business partners, and we all kind of oversee different parts of our business. My focus is really growth and operations of the organization. Each year, leading up to the new year, we assess obviously how we excelled in the previous year, and then we set forth our model for the upcoming year based on where we really feel like the opportunities are for our organization, be it investing in new capabilities or tools or things like that, how we want to grow as an organization, and setting forth that plan, obviously, and optimizing that throughout the year. I think the last couple of years have been really interesting from a model perspective because a lot of disruption is always happening in marketing. AI has been disrupting things tremendously. And so it's allowed us to really assess kind of what we feel like our 5-year vision is for the company. We always want to stay independent and mid-size. So our ambitions are not to be a 500-person company by any means. We always want to stay close to the work. I think that was one of the reasons that my business partners that I left holding companies is when you get to that senior executive level, your job is really kind of managing people and the thousands of meetings you have every day. And we still want to get in and roll our sleeves up and be very involved in the creative product that comes out of our office. So I think the grand ambition is to grow to a place where we're happy and we're able to, take on the work that we want, say no to the work that we don't want to, and really work with the clients that everyone here has always wanted to work on.
Cool. So, let's go back in time a little bit. You mentioned working at some holding companies, big marketing agency holding companies, and I'd have to check your resume to see what you did before that. But I'm kind of curious, did you ever think you'd be owning your own agency and being an entrepreneur? And kind of what was your journey and some of the key milestones along the way that got you to the point where you are now?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I don't know if anyone is like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm sure there are people out there like that, but I grew up in a military family. My dad's a retired general. So it kind of my path was always like, you get work at a company, you work really hard, you move up. And I was lucky enough to have a lot of opportunity that came my way just by doing my job and I think working hard and enjoying what I do. So, I started my career in the world of startups, actually, which is an interesting training ground. I learned a lot about how to build a brand when a brand doesn't exist, and then quickly pivoted that into moving into the world of advertising, where I've spent the vast majority of my career. I worked at Arnold Worldwide, which is a well-known global agency based out of Boston that has marquee clients like Progressive Insurance at the time, Ocean Spray, Jack Daniel, and ultimately led their growth practice for the last 5 years that I was there, and really helping structure global teams from within the larger holding company network to deliver on pitches for brands like American Airlines and Jeep, and so, massive, massive companies. And then I started my own consultancy, and the ambition was really to help brands, marketers, agencies develop a blueprint for growth that can be helping them develop their own lead generation engines, prospecting efforts, helping them define their positionings and their brand narrative, to really helping them develop their kind of pitch material. And while I was consulting, I actually ended up consulting for two companies, GYK Antler and Full Contact Advertising. And obviously, when I introduced myself, I said that I work at Full Contact Advertising. So we come full circle here, but ended up consulting for two brands, became the chief growth officer for the first brand, GYK Antler, where I worked for a few years. It's a mid-size, also independent agency, so really made the shift from kind of the public to the more mid-sized private sector, which is a great shift. And I really fell in love with independent agencies and the way they worked. Met my business partner, Mark Batista, and he and I joined Marty Donahue at Full Contact in the last 2 years. And Marty and I obviously had known each other for quite a few years at this point, to really bring our different skill sets in to, reshape the Boston agency landscape and build the agency that the three of us have always wanted to work at.
Cool. So what are you doing differently now that, I think a lot of people start a business, they have a career and they say, if I ever own my own business, I'd do X, Y, or Z differently, or, you know, like, what are you doing differently now than at prior jobs?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're at a larger agency, you're under a lot of pressure to pitch anything and everything that comes your way, because you have, mm, you know, growth metrics that you have to hit, that you're beholden to at the holding company level. And so there were a lot of things that maybe I wouldn't necessarily have thought were right for the agency, but those were the opportunities, and we needed to attack them. I think as the growth and operations lead in my own agency, I'm far more purposeful about saying no and creating the right opportunities that are really right for the people here, the talent that we've curated, the capabilities we have, instead of saying yes and then trying to figure out how to make, a different practice work that we've never done before. We really pursue the opportunities that are best for our company. And I think that shows in the growth that we've seen over, the last 2 years, and the success and the happiness of our client, because we're playing in the right box with the right people.
It's great that you're able to be so principled with thoughtful in how you build out your current firm. Um, I'm sure there's some challenges. Everybody's got some challenges and hurdles to overcome. What are some of the challenges or the biggest challenge that you're trying to solve now?
Oh, biggest challenge. That's a good one. I think with the emergence of AI, we've put together a core task force to really spearhead the implications for how we use AI as an organization. I think one of the biggest challenges is there's so much out there you can spend as a small, mid-sized agency. You can spend all of your, expenses trying out all these new tools. We have to be very, purposeful about what we need and what we'll actually utilize, and where we're going to see the benefit of that long term. So I think that that's been just like a a smaller scale, I wouldn't call it a challenge, more of an opportunity for us to enhance a lot of the work that we're doing and seeing, as we compete with other organizations. I think the other challenge is obviously what we just talked about, like staying principled, staying in your vision. I think when all agencies go through client attrition. It's a natural part of our business. CMOs move on, new CMOs come in, they want a different agency partner. And I think when something like that happens, you can very quickly like go out and say, we'll take anyone who will want to work with us. And it's like at that time is actually when you really need to, batten down the hatches and say, no, we created this playbook about who we want to be. Let's stay the course and let's stay principled in how we approach this. And the right companies will want to work with that. We just need to stay true to who we are.
Cool. So, if you think back, well, you started the agency only a few years ago, I guess, but if you kind of could go back in time and give yourself some advice and things you've learned, what would you tell yourself?
Goodness. I guess, I think for me, I really I sweat the small stuff and the big stuff. I think now at this point I understand that there like mistakes are made, things happen, and it's kind of how you course correct and how quickly you course correct that really show how you are as a manager, as a leader. And I think that I would probably tell myself like it's all gonna work out. As they always say in advertising, we're not saving lives, but some days it feels like that. Through some of the work that we're doing. So take it all in stride and the advertising agency is going to continue to change, so it's going to look different every day and just wake up ready to take on the challenge.
Yeah, that's a great point. I tend to be, I can sweat the details too much.
Yeah.
Then is good for me sometimes, and I also need to remind myself sometimes what's really important
Yeah.
and what I can just not worry about, right? And sometimes you hire people, you hire really good people, and they may do things differently than you would do, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes that's really healthy and good. You seem to kind of remember, these people. There's a reason why they made the decision they made. They did it the way they did it. There was probably a good reason for it, and seek to understand, rather than immediately kind of criticize because they didn't do it exactly the way you would have done it.
Yeah. And you know what? It's such a good point that I think it's something else I would tell myself is just surround yourself with really smart, talented people, even if very different from yourself. And I have to say, like, that has probably been the cornerstone of my career is just getting to build and work on really incredible teams with incredibly talented people, and continue to today that complement you and push you in ways and push you to think in different ways that, you just aren't inherently who you are, but make you better.
So, what excites you about the future?
I mean, so much. I think we can all like live in fear of, losing our jobs someday. But I think the emergence of AI has just been honestly really exciting so far. It's been incredible to see the different ways that it's impacting how we work in the same way that, in the early 2000s, the emergence of digital and the proliferation of that landscape changed so drastically overnight. I remember when we were creating a Facebook page for every, brand and company spokesperson and how that's evolved over time. And so I just think, it's really exciting to work in an industry that is constantly being disrupted. And I don't really see it as a challenge. I see it as like a reason to get up and come to work and learn something new every day.
Yeah, it's interesting. I look back. I mean, I'm 49 years old, and I look back at key technologies that emerged over my lifespan. And remember, we had when I was in like late elementary school, like third, fourth, fifth grade, we had like computers for the first time. We had our apples. And then I remember went to college my freshman year, and I discovered the internet, and I played water polo and I built like a website and I coded HTML, hard coded HTML for the little team website. And then we had like smartphones come out in like the 20, whatever, 26, 7, 8, whenever the smartphones came out, that was like a game changer. And now AI is a game changer. So it's really interesting to look at like the key milestones that impact the world that we've lived through.
Yeah, and I think that in marketing, people are very more adept at like kind of running to like the new shiny penny. Like there's always something like very new and very exciting, but everything has a place. And so you don't need to completely change the strategies that have worked forever. You just need to know that there are, new ways to go about things and you can evolve them over time. But we don't need to all, drop everything and totally pivot just because some new technology is coming into play.
Right. So, uh, my day job is in accounting and finance, so I got to ask you one or two questions about that.
Okay.
So, how do you go about managing the accounting and finance at your agency?
Sure. So we have a very seasoned CFO who's been working with agencies over the course of his career. So he is integral in kind of partnering with myself and the rest of the leadership team as we set kind of our model over the course of the year, managing all of the cash flow expenses of the organization. We also have a finance director who oversees all of the day-to-day operation. So ensuring that our invoices are sent out on time, we're collecting payment from the right people. So, and then the team that surrounds them. So, um, hired the right people who keep the ship moving. And, we're here to strategize with them and, make optimizations when needed. But really, they're the backbone of the back office that are really keeping things humming along.
So, what kind of financial information do you get on a regular basis that you find helpful in managing the firm, or you have partners, or you collectively use to manage the firm?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So my partners and I meet bi-monthly just for kind of financial forecasting, as well as all kind of cultural and upcoming agency needs. So we need to discuss that. We meet with our CFO and our financial director on a monthly basis to assess account health, our current forecast, and discuss any kind of tweaks or operational changes that need to occur. And then obviously they're kind of reporting out to us ad hoc as new opportunities come in. We'll get kind of updated forecasts and things like that. So instead of we have our kind of set milestones, but it's an always on, ever flowing kind of information between the core leaders to make sure that we're all marching towards the same set of goals monthly at the very least, but most definitely, quarterly and beyond.
Well, I'm curious if there's a particular challenge or question on the finance side that you've had to deal with lately that was important for your firm?
There hasn't been anything big or glaring, I don't think that's had to be addressed.
Okay.
Is there something that people come to you and ask a lot about, when they're kind of working at a small.
Yeah, I mean, when we work with agencies, um, ultimately it's kind of getting just a handle on profitability and the drivers of profitability. So sometimes it's implement like understanding how profitable specific clients are, right?
Yep.
And the single biggest expense for professional services firms is talent and people, right? And so, some agencies don't have a way to time track how much time is getting spent on different projects. And so in their gut, they might think certain clients are more profitable and certain clients are unprofitable, but we try to help them get some data to assess how profitable individual projects are, and it all rolls up at the firm level and has pricing implications. How do we price our services? And if we are trying to achieve a certain profit margin, then what does that mean in terms of our cost structure and our pricing? And so that's one of the critical things we help
Yep.
agents, clients with is, you know, pricing and profitability and analyzing all that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what I was referencing in our monthly meetings. We call it the Cart Health, but we really take a look at what are the key scopes of works and projects underway? How are we tracking? Are we burning FOD? How much is left within the project, et cetera, so that we can really assess, for future opportunities if that was priced correctly, and or different talent was needed.
Cool. So I think you mentioned your father was a three-star general,
He,
and now you're running a marketing agency,
yeah.
right? And I don't talk to a lot of people who are daughters of three-star generals who are now running creative agencies. So, like, is, is there anything interesting there? Like, how did that happen?
I would say that his career definitely had a it hugely shaped kind of the person that I became. And that, we moved every year of our lives, and people are like, that's crazy. And it's like, no, it was every year we would move to a new place, and we lived in, big cities like Washington, D.C. and Miami. And we lived in small towns no one's ever heard of, like, Abilene, Texas. If you've ever seen that show, Friday Night Lights, it's one of those, what's Texas?
Oh yeah.
Ones are Minot, North Dakota. And so I think I just became innately curious about like human nature, and moving from town to town. These places were so drastically different in terms of what people liked and where they ate and what they bought and what they were into. And I think as a young person, obviously you're interested in making friends, but you're also just naturally curious about the world. And so as I was assessing what I wanted to do, I really wanted to do something that had implications as to studying human behavior and what makes people tick. And that kind of drove me into marketing. So I think in a different life, I would have been more of a strategist than a growth and operations oriented leader. But I definitely feel like that's been a huge part of what's driven me to pursue this and pursue this industry, is just, why do people do what they do, and how do we get them to change behavior? And it's, not unique to just buying things. It's to getting people to stop smoking, or, getting people to try a new treatment or medication. And so, I just love that our industry has the ability to make real impact in what we do and what we say. And it's also a tremendous responsibility.
What branch did your father serve in?
Air Force.
Yeah, my father was not enlisted, but he worked in designing communication systems primarily for the Air Force, like the AWACS platform and things like that. And we live up here in Massachusetts, and for a while he worked at an Air Force base, working very closely with the Air Force. So I have an affinity for the Air Force.
Yeah. Yes. Same. That's incredible.
So I was talking a lot about work and everything, but what do you like to do outside of work?
Outside of work. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. So I have two kids who are amazing. So I spend a lot of time, doing their activities, following them through their incredible lives. Lifelong athlete. I think, at one point I did triathlons, and still a big passion of mine. Don't really have the time to train for them.
Triathlons are tough. I went through a phase for 10 years or so. I did a lot of triathlons, and I worked my way up to doing the half Ironman distance.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun, built a lot of great relationships, a lot of, 2-hour runs or bike rides with people. But when my kids got to a certain age, and I just needed to prioritize spending time with my kids and coaching their sports teams, and not going on 2-hour bike rides and runs anymore myself. But yeah.
Same page. But yeah, we spend a lot of time down on the Cape in the summer, which we love. And I'm also not embarrassed to say I'm like a big fan of like psychological thrillers. So I do a lot of work audiobooks. So if I'm in the car, I'm usually focused on something that's more kind of professional in nature. But if I'm on vacation, I'm reading something that is completely a beach read.
Yeah, yeah. I love the audiobooks. It's interesting how our consumption of media has changed over time.
Mm.
Because I mean, I still read a book occasionally, and sometimes I give somebody as a gift a paper book, and they're like, "What is this?" Like nobody reads paper books anymore, I guess. But I tend to yeah, do a lot of audiobooks, a lot of podcasts,
Definitely.
um, trying to relax and get my mind like clear to be able to go to sleep at night and not stress out about whatever I'm thinking about. I throw on a podcast when I'm trying to go to sleep and stuff. But yeah, I get it. So I really appreciate the time you've spent here, Erin, and everything that you've shared. If folks want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Sure. If you want to learn about full contact advertising, feel free to go to gofullcontact.com. And if you click on the contact link there to newbiz at gofullcontact.com, you'll be connected directly to me.
Cool.
So obviously also feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to have a conversation. And like I said, I am always very honest about what our agency is best at and where we play best. And I'm always happy to help people by making recommendations and connecting people to other agencies that, might be the right fit for them. Um, so all is to say, yeah, definitely hit me up.
So I got to ask you about the name. What was like the genesis or the theory behind the name Full Contact Agency?
Yeah, so I can't take any credit for that. That's all Marty Donahue is the founding partner. And he really was driven by kind of leading the holding company model because he felt like with the proliferation of digital, holding companies were just having trouble moving at the speed of the disruption of the industry. So similar to kind of what we talked about in the past, but as he was thinking through kind of what then the agency should stand for, it was all about making full contact. So whatever channels exist today or exist tomorrow, making sure that we're the agency that can really deliver brand and performance across the entire marketing ecosystem.
Okay, that makes sense.
Full contact.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for everything you've shared today, Erin. Really appreciate the conversation. Covered a lot of ground. If people are listening to this and you enjoyed the conversation, you learned something, please share this. Let's get this podcast out in the hands of other agency owners and share some thought leadership with peers. But thank you again, Erin. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. This was really fun. So appreciate it.
Well, this has been another exciting episode of the Marketing Agency Power Hour. We'll see you all next time. Another episode in the books. Thank you so much for tuning in. For show notes and more, please visit marketingagencypowerhour.com. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, providing marketing agencies with bookkeeping, accounting, and finance support. With SmartBooks, you gain the clarity and confidence to make your agency a success. Until next time,